DGTV, we're here with Alex Debogorski. You might recognize him from the History Channel's #1 rated show, Ice Road Truckers. Now, Alex, we're outside here in Vancouver on a nice sunny day. This is a bit different for you than your normal working conditions, right?
Normal working conditions is usually 40 below, 10 below at least. If it gets any warmer, and we got a problem because the ice is melting.
Now, with this this fame and all the traveling, that when people recognize you, what's the first thing they ask you?
Well, I guess they ask about the cracking of the ice.
Right.
The ice of northern Canada, of north of Yellowknife going to the diamond mines, and Inuvik, Tuktoyaktuk on the ocean ice, and the sound of the ice cracking, the idea of hauling big loads over water. That seems to what really touches people's imaginations.
Well, tell me about the first time you ever heard that ice crack when you were actually out driving it.
1976, I'd have to drive across the Mackenzie River because we don't have a bridge, and with the car, usually, unless it's really thin, you're not going to hear it crack. But I know that I was pretty nervous. And the first time with a big truck, probably on Prelude Lake or somewhere hauling gravel, the dump truck, I was exceptionally nervous. Door open, window rolled down.
Ready to jump?
Ready to jump, even if they said the ice was fine.
Yeah. Let's talk specifically about writing this book. It's called King of the Road, True Tales from a Legendary Ice Road Trucker. Now, how did the idea for this book come about?
I thought there was all these shenanigans I've been involved in. I thought I could probably write a book, and now that I've got some notoriety, and I've always written a bit of poetry, I've never really shared with other people, I thought, well, maybe we can write a book. An agent got a hold of us. I said, sure, I'd be happy to write a book. And how do we go about it? And
what kind of reaction did you get when you said, I'm going to write this book?
I didn't tell them.
Oh, really?
I didn't tell my friends. I don't have a lot of friends.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of acquaintances.
Okay,
I mean, I'm going home now. I mean, I live in the Northwest Territories. It's twice the size of Texas. There's only 40,000 of us. Half of us are Aboriginal, and half the 40,000 live in Yellowknife. So, like, it's not a real big area, and I mean, a reason.
That would explain your 11 children and spending all your time with your wife then, I guess.
Oh, no. I mean, in 38 years, we had sex 13 times. We had 2 miscarriages. We had 11 kids. You probably had more sex than I have.
I don't even know what to say to you at this point.
Well, you'll start out, you come off of the Ingram Trail, which is 70 kilometers out of Yellowknife, and you drive off in the ice, and if you've been doing it for a long time, you just take your foot off the throttle, it slows down to 25 kilometers an hour, your heart drops about 15 beats a minute, and you just sort of, okay, 2 months. There's the beginning of 2 months at 25 miles an hour, maybe 35, and then quite often you start to try to see if you can come up with a rumor. You want to invent a rumor that you can pass on to the other drivers that potentially, like when you're a real busy area, you might have as many as 500 to 800 drivers between Edmonton and the mine. And if you can invent a good rumor, and 32 hours later when you're returning, you should be able to meet your rumor. Hey Alec, did you hear? And that's when you did a good rumor.
Driving in general, when you're driving around in the city, what is it about other drivers that makes you crazy?
The finger.
So Alec, 11 kids now, have you taught them all how to drive?
No. I've rather, even with my wife, I was rather impatient when it comes to teaching my family how to drive. I think somebody else taught my wife how to drive.
Writing is always considered one of the loneliest things to do. Is that worked out?
Yeah, because you have a lot of, as you may or may not know, there's a lot of truck drivers, heavy equipment operators, like a lot of these guys, farmers. They spend a lot of time by themselves. And then when we get around people, you can't shut them up. Blah, blah, blah.
No way. Really?
And of course, and they usually have some interesting takes on things, because instead of listening to the radio and listening to media and watching television, they're figuring out things for themselves. Well, maybe this is the way it works, eh? You stop and talk to a bird along the way and find out what the bird's opinion is. Or maybe you have a sandwich that lives underneath their passenger seat and comes out 3:30 morning and makes left-wing political comment. You never know. You get a chance to use your imagination. 3 o'clock in the morning and there's hardly any trucks out there and the flying saucers come out. Like, you never know what's going to happen.